The breaking point. The galactic conclave's grand chamber hummed with the voices of 1,000 species. Towering crystalline pillars supported a dome that revealed the spectacular starscape beyond. Amid the cacophony of alien delegates, some with multiple limbs, others floating in containment fields, still others comprised of pure energy, stood Captain Elena Reyes, the final human representative to the conclave. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her formal Terran fleet uniform bore the scars of 17 years of diplomatic service. On her chest, a single platinum pin marked her as Earth's ambassador. It suddenly felt heavier than ever. "The conclave has reached its decision," announced High Overseer Krill, his translucent tentacles rippling with bioluminescent patterns. The chamber fell silent. Regarding petition TF 29471, humanity's request for equal representation and removal of technological restriction barriers, the conclave votes to deny. Elena didn't flinch. This was the 7th rejection in 12 years. Behind her impassive expression, calculations were already running. The words she would speak next had been prepared for decades, approved by Earth's Unified Council, and kept as the final option if this moment ever came. "I request the right to address the conclave before the session ends," Elena said, her voice carrying across the chamber without technological amplification, a small but deliberate demonstration of humanity's adaptability. "Granted," Krill responded, his compound eyes narrowing slightly. "Though we have exhausted all reasonable arguments on this matter." Elena stepped forward to the central podium. 1,000 alien eyes watched her, some curious, most indifferent, a few openly hostile. "For 73 years, humanity has been part of this conclave. We arrived late to the galactic stage, yet within a single generation, we helped solve the chromatic plague that threatened 17 species. Our engineers strengthened your failing jump gate network. Our scientists developed sustainable terraforming when your own specialists had abandoned it as impossible." She paused, scanning the chamber. "In return, you've restricted our colonies to 12 systems. You've classified our faster-than-light advancements as potentially destabilizing. You've monitored our communications under the guise of standard security protocols that apply to no other species." Murmurs rippled through the chamber, but Elena continued without hesitation. "Humanity did not join the galactic community to be treated as children. We came seeking equals." With slow, deliberate movements, Elena removed the platinum pin from her chest and placed it on the podium. "As of this moment, I am authorized to invoke Starfall Protocol. Humanity hereby withdraws from the Galactic Conclave and all associated treaties, effective immediately." The chamber erupted. Some delegates leaped to their feet. Others emitted warning pheromones or electromagnetic pulses of agitation. High Overseer Krill's bioluminescence flashed in alarm patterns. "Ambassador Reyes, this is an unprecedented overreaction." Krill's voice boomed over the chaos. "Your species cannot simply withdraw from galactic society. The economic repercussions alone would be devastating to Earth." Elena finished for him. "That's what you've always believed, isn't it? That humans need the conclave more than the conclave needs humans." She stepped away from the podium. "You're about to test that theory." Arcturian delegate Vex, his metallic exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber lights, laughed, a harsh mechanical sound. "This is human emotional theatrics. You'll return within a standard cycle, begging for readmission." Elena didn't respond. She simply turned and walked toward the chamber's exit, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly awkward silence. "Humans have always been impulsive," someone whispered loudly enough for her to hear. "This tantrum won't last a month." The massive doors closed behind her with a resonant thud. In the antechamber, her aide Commander Jackson waited, his expression grim. "It's done," Elena said quietly. Jackson nodded once and activated his secure communicator. "Starfall Protocol authorized. Authentication code: Terra Invicta." Within seconds, confirmation signals began arriving from across the galaxy. Elena watched the data scroll across her neural interface. Earth fleet vessels changing course, colonial administrators receiving encrypted instructions, research outposts initiating data purges. "They think we're bluffing," Elena said, watching through the antechamber windows as the conclave delegates argued among themselves. "They have no idea what's coming," Jackson replied. On the bridge of the EFS Dauntless, Admiral Sarah Chen received the Starfall Protocol authorization. Her face remained expressionless as she turned to her senior staff. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a drill. Implement Phase 1 immediately." Across human space, change happened with remarkable efficiency. On the mining colony of Proxima Centauri II, engineers began dismantling critical equipment. In research stations throughout conclave space, human scientists quietly submitted their resignations. Trading vessels altered their courses, heading back to human-controlled systems. The first alien to notice something unusual was Dr. Krelix, a Medusan xenobiologist who arrived at his laboratory to find his 3 human colleagues gone, along with their research data. Confusion turned to concern when communication with Earth's Scientific Academy returned only automated messages. By the end of the first week, rumors spread through the galactic networks. Humans were returning to their home systems en masse. Initial reactions from the conclave leadership dismissed it as a temporary political maneuver. "Let them sulk," High Overseer Krill told his advisors. "Their colonies require our supply chains. Their economies are integrated with ours. They cannot sustain this isolation." But as the second week began, warning signs multiplied. The human-operated terraforming project on Kepler 22 bits shut down without explanation. 3 major trading hubs reported all human merchants had departed overnight. Communication relays maintained by human technicians began experiencing unexplained failures. In an emergency session, conclave security officials reviewed increasingly disturbing reports. 97% of registered humans have left conclave space, reported Security Director Thrix. Their embassy staffs are departing on the last ships tomorrow. "This is beyond a political statement," said Medusan Counselor Ziv, her tentacles twisting anxiously. "This is a coordinated exodus." High Overseer Krill still appeared unconcerned. Where would they go? Their 12 assigned systems cannot sustain their population and industry without conclave infrastructure. That's when Junior Analyst Vendra, a young Arcturian, cleared his throat nervously. "Sir, there's something else. Our long-range monitoring stations have detected unusual energy signatures around Sol system. Massive energy surges unlike anything we've recorded before." "What kind of energy signatures?" Krill demanded. "Unknown, sir. But they're growing stronger every day." On the 3rd week after Elena Reyes walked out of the conclave chamber, the last human embassy in the galaxy closed its doors. No formal announcement, no dramatic gesture. Staff simply boarded their ships and departed, leaving behind empty buildings. The only message was a small data crystal delivered to the conclave headquarters. When activated, it displayed 3 simple sentences floating in holographic text. "We wanted to be partners. You chose to make us servants. Farewell." In the conclave's analysis center, Vendro worked frantically to understand what was happening in Sol's system. The energy readings had become so intense that monitoring stations were failing. "It's like they're bending space itself," he told his superior. "Whatever they're doing, it's nothing in our technological database." "Impossible," his superior responded. "Human technology is carefully monitored and regulated." Vendra looked up from his instruments, his metallic faceplates shifting in the Arcturian expression of revelation. "What if what we've been allowed to see isn't all they have?" On Earth, Captain Elena Reyes stood on the observation deck of the Planetary Control Center buried deep beneath the North American continent. Through reinforced viewports, she watched as the massive Aurora engines powered up. Technology developed in secret for 50 years, hidden from conclave observers. "Final systems check complete," reported Admiral Chen. "All 7 billion citizens accounted for. Colonial extraction complete. Fleet in position." Elena nodded, feeling the weight of what was about to happen. Begin the sequence. Below them, the Aurora engines reached full power. Around Earth, reality itself began to bend as space-time folded according to the equations humanity had discovered decades ago, but kept hidden from their supposed galactic allies. They'd never believed we could exist without them, Elena said quietly. They're about to learn otherwise. With a flash of light that temporarily blinded every monitoring station in the sector, Earth, along with its moon, orbital habitats, and defensive fleet, vanished from known space. The stars around Sol system shifted slightly, filling the void where Earth had been. To the galaxy at large, it appeared as if humanity's cradle had simply ceased to exist. As news spread across the galaxy, panic followed. The species that had so easily dismissed humans as primitive, emotional, and dependent suddenly faced a terrifying reality. Humanity wasn't gone. They were just gone from here. And no one knew where they had gone or what they might do next. The breaking point had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The silent exodus. 3 months after Earth's disappearance, the galactic conclave faced a crisis unlike any in its 1,000-year history. The chamber that once hosted Elena Reyes's final address now held a frantically assembled emergency session. The Rigel communication hub has failed, announced technician Zivril, his crystalline form vibrating with distress. That's the 4th major network junction to go offline this cycle. High Overseer Krill, once dismissive of humanity's departure, now leaned forward anxiously. Can it be repaired? The system architecture was designed by human engineers, Zivril explained. Without their specialized knowledge, his voice trailed off. Find someone else who understands it, Krill demanded. We've tried, Overseer. The systems use quantum encryption protocols developed by humans. Even our best technicians can only make temporary patches that fail within days. This pattern had repeated across the galaxy with increasing frequency. Communications failing, medical treatments becoming unavailable, mining operations unable to maintain efficiency, transportation networks experiencing cascading disruptions. The Conclave had never realized how deeply human innovation had been integrated into galactic infrastructure, often in positions deemed too technical or mundane for the superior species to concern themselves with. This wasn't sabotage, noted junior analyst Vendra, now promoted to Strategic Assessment Director after correctly predicting 16 major system failures. Humans simply stopped maintaining what they built. They took their knowledge and left. In a private chamber nearby, former dissenting conclave member Trillax studied reports from across the galaxy. The Medusan scientist had been one of the few voices advocating for human equality, arguing their unique approach to problem-solving made them valuable allies. They're not coming back, are they? Asked his assistant. Would you? Trillax replied, his tentacles coiling thoughtfully. We restricted their expansion while exploiting their innovation. We demanded their assistance while denying them equal standing. In retrospect, I'm surprised they waited 73 years to leave. Aboard the EF's Dauntless, now traveling through uncharted space far beyond Conclave territory, Admiral Chen received updates from monitoring beacons left in strategic locations throughout the galaxy. Communication networks operating at 43% capacity, reported her executive officer. Medical crisis on 17 worlds due to shortage of human-developed treatments. 3 major trade hubs have collapsed entirely. Chen nodded, unsurprised. And the search parties. 6 expeditions launched toward where Earth used to be. They found nothing but empty space, no trace of the Aurora technology. Humanity's exodus had been meticulously planned over decades, a contingency developed after the 3rd rejection of equal standing. Every human-developed technology had been designed with 2 layers, the visible function that benefited the galaxy and hidden components that only humans fully understood. Nothing had been sabotage. Systems weren't designed to fail. They were designed to require human maintenance. The difference was subtle but profound. In the heart of the Dauntless, Chen reviewed their progress on the long-range scanners. Earth, along with its moon and orbital infrastructure, now traveled through a pocket of folded space, essentially sliding between the dimensional layers of reality. The Aurora engines weren't just powerful, they had fundamentally altered humanity's relationship with physics itself. "We've received the last transport from Outpost Sigma," her communications officer reported. "That completes the extraction. Every human has been accounted for." Chen allowed herself a moment of pride. Over 7 billion Earth residents and nearly 2 billion colonists, all relocated without a single loss of life. The greatest migration in history, executed in perfect secrecy. Back in Conclave space, the search for answers intensified. Research teams scoured abandoned human facilities, finding them stripped of anything valuable or informative. The few databases left behind contained only basic information already known to the Conclave. It was during one such investigation that researchers discovered a hidden laboratory beneath New Geneva, humanity's primary research hub in Conclave space. The facility had been evacuated like all others, but one room remained intact, containing a single active terminal. When activated, it displayed diagrams of the Aurora engine, complex schematics that even the Conclave's most brilliant minds struggled to comprehend. It wasn't the details of the technology that shocked them, but the creation date embedded in the files. The engines had been developed 50 years ago, barely a generation after humanity joined the Conclave. All those years, while accepting restrictions and second-class status, humans had been perfecting the means of their exodus. Further examination revealed more disturbing information. The Aurora technology wasn't just a means of transportation. It was a fundamental breakthrough in space-time manipulation that rendered most Conclave defensive systems obsolete. Humanity could have used it as a weapon. Instead, they chose simply to leave. "They could have demanded concessions," whispered one researcher. "With this technology, they could have forced the Conclave to grant them anything." "Perhaps," replied another, "that's exactly why they left instead. They knew what such power would do to interspecies relations." 6 months after the exodus, High Overseer Krill finally admitted the severity of the situation in a galaxy-wide address. "The departure of humanity has created unforeseen challenges to our shared infrastructure," he stated, his tentacles barely concealing patterns of extreme stress. "The Conclave has initiated Project Restoration to address these issues. Until then, rationing protocols will be implemented for essential services." What Krill didn't mention was that unforeseen challenges meant complete collapse of 17% of critical systems, with another 43% in danger of failure within a year. Project Restoration consisted of desperate attempts to reverse engineer human technology with limited success, and rationing protocols translated to triage decisions about which worlds would receive diminishing resources and which would be left to fend for themselves. The crisis reached a tipping point when the medical facility on Proxima Centauri, ironically a former human colony, reported complete failure of their pathogen containment systems. A deadly plague that humans had controlled for decades suddenly threatened to spread across the sector. In desperation, the Conclave authorized an unprecedented mission, a diplomatic expedition to locate humanity, wherever they had gone, and negotiate for assistance. Leading this mission was Trillax, now appointed Special Envoy. His ship, the Conclave vessel Promise, carried the most advanced detection equipment available and a simple message of reconciliation. "Do you really think we can find them?" asked his first officer as they prepared to depart. "If they want to be found," Trillax replied. "The question is whether they have any reason to want that." The Promise spent weeks following fragmentary energy signatures and radiation trails that might indicate Aurora technology. They explored abandoned mining outposts and former colonies, finding nothing but emptiness and occasionally small markers deliberately left behind. One such marker, found floating in the void where a human scientific station had once orbited a gas giant, contained a simple message etched in multiple languages. "We asked for respect. You offered condescension. We asked for partnership. You demanded submission. We asked for equality. You gave us limitations. We will build our future elsewhere. After months of searching, the Promise detected unusual energy fluctuations near the edge of the galaxy, far from any inhabited system. Following the readings, they discovered a small automated beacon drifting in space. When Trillax's team brought it aboard for examination, it activated, projecting a holographic image of Captain Elena Reyes, the woman who had walked out of the conclave and set everything in motion. If you're receiving this message, you've found one of our navigational markers, her image said. This means either you're very persistent or very desperate, possibly both. The hologram smiled slightly, a human expression Trillax had learned meant irony. The conclave believed humanity's technology was limited to what they permitted us to develop. That assumption was incorrect. It was also their fundamental mistake. The image shifted, showing diagrams of the Aurora engine and other technologies the conclave had never seen. Humanity didn't leave because of wounded pride. We left because the conclave's structure made true partnership impossible. A society that inherently ranks species cannot create genuine equality. Trillax watched, tentacles absolutely still in the Medusan expression of complete attention. We've established a new civilization beyond conclave space. We are not interested in revenge or conflict. We simply wish to develop without artificial constraints. The hologram paused, then added, however, we recognize that our departure has caused difficulties for innocent populations. The attached data contains solutions for the most critical systems failures. Consider it our parting gift. When the message ended, the beacon transferred comprehensive technical documentation for repairing the failing communication networks, medical facilities, and power distribution systems. The information would save billions of lives across the galaxy, but it was also clear from the technical details that these were obsolete human technologies, stopgap measures, not the advanced systems humanity now possessed. As the Promise returned to conclave space with the precious data, Trillax composed his report to the High Overseer and Council. How could he explain that the species they had dismissed as primitive had not only surpassed them technologically, but had chosen mercy over vengeance? The silent exodus had revealed a terrible truth. The conclave had never truly understood humanity at all. And now that humanity had found its independence, the galaxy faced a new reality, one where the balance of power had fundamentally shifted. In the vastness of uncharted space, Earth continued its journey, surrounded by its fleet and colonial worlds, all interconnected by Aurora technology. Humanity was rebuilding, expanding, and evolving without constraints. The galaxy they left behind struggled to adapt to their absence, never suspecting that their departure was just the beginning of a much larger transformation. The Reckoning. 5 years after humanity's exodus, the galaxy had changed profoundly. The initial crisis had passed. The technical data provided by Elena Reyes's beacon had allowed the conclave to stabilize critical systems. But the underlying structural problems remained. The great chamber of the conclave, once a symbol of galactic unity, now stood half empty. 17 member species had withdrawn, forming regional alliances better suited to addressing local concerns. The remaining members operated with a new humility, the memory of collapse still fresh. High Overseer Krill had been replaced by Trillax, whose experience with the Promise expedition made him uniquely qualified to lead in this new era. His first act had been to dissolve the species classification system that had relegated humans to second-class status. The conclave was founded on the principle that diversity creates strength. Trillax addressed the assembly. Yet we created a hierarchy that valued certain forms of intelligence over others. This contradiction nearly destroyed us. In the years since humans departed, the galaxy had watched with a mixture of fear and fascination as occasional reports filtered back from the frontier. Explorers spoke of encountering automated beacons with helpful navigational information. Trading vessels reported mysterious rescues from pirates by ships that appeared without warning and vanished just as quickly. Most intriguing were the scientific papers that occasionally appeared on public networks. Breakthrough research addressing problems the conclave had deemed unsolvable, published anonymously, but bearing unmistakable signs of human thinking. "They're still watching us," Vendra told Trillax during a private briefing. Now the Conclave's chief of intelligence, the young Arcturian had built his career on understanding human behavior, not interfering directly, but observing, perhaps evaluating. Trillax's tentacles formed a pattern indicating agreement. The question is, what are they evaluating us for? The answer began to emerge when long-range observatories detected unusual phenomena at the galaxy's edge. Space itself seemed to be folding and unfolding in patterns too precise to be natural. "It's a message," Vendra realized after analysts compiled months of observations, a deliberate signal using space-time distortions as the medium. And it's addressed to us. When decoded, the message was surprisingly straightforward. Coordinates for a location in neutral space, a date 6 months in the future, and a simple invitation. "Let's talk." The Conclave debated for weeks whether to accept this mysterious summons. Fear counseled caution. Humanity's technology had advanced beyond comprehension in the years since their departure. But curiosity and necessity proved stronger motivations. "We cannot pretend they don't exist," Trillax argued. "Nor can we ignore that our galaxy functions better with human innovation than without it. We must meet them as equals, something we should have done from the beginning." And so, on the appointed date, a delegation led by Trillax arrived at the coordinates in the diplomatic vessel New Beginning. They found a small space station waiting, a sleek structure of impossible geometries that seemed to exist partially outside normal space. As they docked, Trillax felt both trepidation and excitement. No Conclave representative had spoken directly with humans in 5 years. What changes would they find? The answer exceeded all expectations. The human delegation was led by a familiar face, Captain Elena Reyes, though she now wore a simple gray uniform without insignia or rank. "Welcome," she greeted them. "Thank you for coming." The meeting space inside the station defied conventional architecture, with walls that seemed both solid and permeable. Through transparent sections, they could see stars in configurations no one recognized. "Where exactly are we?" asked Vendra, unable to contain his curiosity. "This station exists at an intersection of dimensional planes," Elena explained. "It's neither fully in your space nor fully in ours, a neutral ground of sorts." The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just developed a method of transportation. They had found a way to exist in a different layer of reality altogether. Elena didn't waste time on pleasantries. "You're here because both sides recognize that complete separation has disadvantages. We've been monitoring the Conclave's reforms with interest. They're a good start." Trillax appreciated the directness. "The crisis of your departure forced us to confront fundamental flaws in our structure. Though the price was high, the lessons were valuable. And that's precisely why we've initiated contact," Elena said. "We believe enough has changed to make limited cooperation possible again." Over the next several hours, she outlined humanity's proposal, a new relationship, not as members of the Conclave, but as independent allies. Humans would share some technologies and participate in cultural exchanges, but would maintain their separate civilization beyond Conclave space. "We call our new home Transcendence," Elena explained. "It's not a planet or a system, but a state of existence. Our cities exist in folded space, accessible only through Aurora technology." She activated a holographic display, showing glimpses of humanity's new civilization. Vast habitats floating in beautiful dimensional pockets, ships moving through space by bending reality rather than traveling through it, and research centers studying concepts beyond current galactic understanding. "In 5 years, we've accomplished what might have taken centuries under Conclave restrictions," Elena said without arrogance, simply stating fact. "We have no desire to return to the old arrangement." Trillax absorbed this information with the calm deliberation characteristic of his species. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A diplomatic exchange, to start. Then limited trade in non-sensitive technologies. Cultural missions. Scientific collaboration on neutral projects. Elena leaned forward slightly, but with clear understanding that humanity remains independent. We will not submit to conclave authority again. The negotiations extended over several days, with both sides carefully establishing boundaries and expectations. It became clear that humanity's new civilization had advantages the conclave couldn't match, but also challenges that made complete isolation impractical. The Aurora technology has transformed our existence, Elena explained during a private conversation with Trillax. But dimensional living creates unique problems. Some resources simply don't exist in the spaces we inhabit. And there are psychological effects of dimensional separation that we're still adapting to. You need us, Trillax observed. Not as much as you once thought we did, Elena corrected. But yes, limited interaction benefits both sides. The question is whether the conclave can accept a relationship of genuine equality this time. On the final day of negotiations, Elena took the conclave delegation on a tour few non-humans had experienced. Using Aurora technology, they'd briefly visited Transcendence itself. The experience defied description. Colors existed that had no names in any conclave language. Structures followed architectural principles that seemed to contradict physics. And everywhere, humans moved with purpose and innovation, building a civilization unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. This is what freedom to develop without arbitrary restrictions created, Elena said as they observed a research facility where scientists manipulated dimensional barriers with casual expertise. We don't seek to threaten the conclave, but we will never again allow our potential to be artificially limited. When they returned to the station, Trillax and his delegation had a new understanding of what humanity had become and what the conclave had lost through its arrogance. We accept your terms, Trillax told Elena before departing. The conclave recognizes Transcendence as a sovereign entity and welcomes peaceful exchange between our civilizations. Elena nodded, her expression thoughtful. There's one more thing you should know before you leave. We aren't alone out here. She activated a final holographic display, showing other dimensional pockets similar to human habitats, but clearly designed for different physiologies. We've discovered other species who left or were rejected by the conclave over the centuries. Some developed their own methods of dimensional travel. Others we helped. Together, we're forming something new, an alliance of independent civilizations based on genuine equality and mutual respect. Trillax's tentacles formed the pattern for profound surprise. A counter-conclave. No, Elena corrected. An alternative. The galaxy is vast enough for different approaches to coexist. The question each species must answer is which model better serves their aspirations. As the conclave delegation prepared to depart, Elena offered a final observation. The Aurora technology that allowed us to leave wasn't just about transportation. It was about perspective. Sometimes, to find your true place in the universe, you must first step outside the framework that defined you. Returning to conclave space, Trillax presented the agreement to the assembly. Debate was intense. Some members feared establishing relations with humanity would lead other species to seek independence. Others saw opportunity in renewed contact with human innovation. In the end, pragmatism prevailed. The reckoning had come. The conclave would either adapt to a new galactic reality or become increasingly irrelevant. One cycle later, the first official exchange began. Human cultural representatives established a small embassy on the conclave capital world. Conclave scientists received invitations to study at research outposts on the dimensional boundary. Trading vessels from both civilizations established new routes. It wasn't the reunion some had hoped for. Humanity would never again place itself under conclave authority. But it was a beginning. A recognition that diversity truly did create strength, but only when each unique perspective was valued equally. In her personal quarters aboard the dimensional habitat New Earth, Elena Rice reviewed reports of the initial exchanges. The path ahead would be challenging. Some in the conclave still resented humanity's departure and the subsequent collapse. Some humans still harbored anger at centuries of condescension and restriction. But as she looked out her window at the impossible beauty of folded space-time, where Earth now traveled safely beyond the reach of those who had underestimated its potential, Alina felt something she hadn't expected: hope. The Exodus had never been about escape. It had been about creating the space for humanity to become what it was meant to be. And perhaps in time, the same transformation could happen for the galaxy itself. Outside, the stars looked different here, brighter somehow. When viewed from between the dimensions, Alina smiled slightly. The negotiation was over. The real conversation was just beginning.